Alright guys, today we are going to be reacting to move-in ready 3D printed house in Germany. And we reacted to a video regarding 3D printing and I said, you know what? We are getting somewhere here, so let's just jump in and see what's going on, guys.
The way you build it. You can turn any home into a smart home with renovations, innovative systems for electrical, mechanical, plumbing. But what really makes a home innovative, in my opinion, is the way it's built. The biggest need right now is in affordable housing and building more homes at a faster pace. Historically, the supply for housing has never really caught up to demand, and so we're...
Wow! That's how it looks! That's how it looks!
left in an environment where...
Yo, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this, guys.
Real estate is increasing at a faster rate than inflation. My first video of this house got over 500,000 views and is my most viewed video to date. So then I went to Germany and toured this house with the head architect himself. For some reason that video got 1/10 views of the original, but today we're back to show the finished product of what I consider the most innovative house in the world. Since we last discussed it about 8 or 9 months ago, I've learned quite a bit more about 3D printed construction and specifically this project. So before we go into the finished details, let's look at how it was constructed and revisit some of the innovative choices they made, which together make this such a fascinating project. This building was 3D printed by Perry. They used a Cobod printer. Perry is actually a stakeholder in the Cobod company. This was a brilliant move because Perry does a ton of
it looks big. I'm sorry, guys. It looks big enough. I like this.
Concrete. So by investing in 3D printed concrete, they're hedging their bet in the industry they are now operating in. After completing the first floor, they installed an insulated concrete form floor. This also includes a lot of the electrical and mechanical equipment, as this house has radiant heat, which will make it much more environmentally friendly than alternative heating options. Any place they have horizontal overhangs, they needed to prefab the structures. Some of these are prefab insulated concrete forms, and other portions are 3D printed parts that are lifted into place on site. These were printed off-site, and we'll take a look at that later. Finally, they placed the forms again and then poured the roof. We've also seen more traditional gable roofs integrated with Cobod system. That time lapse really leaves out quite a bit of details. First, they have to put the printer together. They receive it in parts. There are columns that make the Z-axis, and then a bar that goes from the left to right side that makes the X-axis, and it also goes forward and backward, which is the Y-axis.
Yo, man, that house looks very nice. I'm not gonna lie. Dang, it has me like thinking now.
The vertical columns need to be on anchors so that they can be stable. Assembling the entire printer is approximately an 8-hour process. Disassembling the printer takes about 4 hours. This printer also features what they call an E-axis and a U-axis. The E is the extruder, and the U is the orientation of the extruder head, as it can rotate 360 degrees to accommodate any angles. This is necessary because Cobod uses a print head that extrudes a rectangular shape as opposed to a circular extruder head that many companies opt for, which doesn't require a U-axis. Printing is definitely the fun part of the job. Once everything gets going, it takes about 3 people monitoring the system to make sure everything is running smoothly. One person will watch the extruder head, another person will sit at the laptop, a third person will monitor the material from the silo. On some job sites, hose management can be particularly tricky, and in that case you'll have a 4th person specifically responsible for managing the hose. It's awesome watching everything come together as the machine does most of the work.
That's clever. What I'm saying. That means that you can reduce the cost of houses because you're not paying labor that much, you know?
How Cobod has this serrated pattern at the top of each layer. This probably helps it hold a bond to the previous layer. The beauty of printed concrete is that it hasn't cured by the end of the first layer, so when you print the next layer on top, you end up with a monolithic structure, which is just as strong as if you had poured it into a traditional form. In fact, with the mixes they use, printed walls are often significantly stronger than their poured formwork alternative, not to mention the custom wavy patterns you can do for bonus points. The gap between the inner and outer wall is where they can put insulation. Here we see a close-up of what the system looks like when the U-axis is rotating. You have to clean the system every once in a while. As you can see, it gets a little bit of material buildup just from regular use, and with concrete it cures very quickly, so unless you want to use a chisel, it's best to get it thoroughly cleaned after every use. Yep. There have been cases where a printer that's not kept in top condition ends up with a clog either at the extruder head or in the hose, more likely. In this case, occasionally they'll have to hit the hose with hammers in order to get rid of the clog. By doing maintenance at proper intervals and making sure you clean it really well, you can avoid the likelihood of some of these scenarios that can lead to excessive time and money being wasted. Another common learning experience I've heard from many job sites is equipment management. When you're printing a house, you have a large silo pumping material into the mixer pump system, which then goes into the hose, which feeds into the extruder head of your machine. You need a generator, a silo, and your mixer pump system to all be connected to the same system while the print head is moving continuously. On large complicated prints, this might mean you have to move your equipment every day, and that's a little bit of a logistics puzzle to figure out where everything should go. Part of what makes this the most innovative house in the world is how it's the first of its kind. Once there are tons of homes like this, it'll be much easier because they'll already know how to overcome some of the challenges they face. Here you see the beaded foam insulation that they used to keep the house warm in the winter. They were considerate of electrical, mechanical, and plumbing in the planning phase, and so they had some pass-throughs.
Yo, this is insane, man. Even you don't want, let's say you don't want to be a house for yourself, but a guest house. You see what I'm saying? You build a guest house, man.
During the print to make it extremely easy. Installing these pass-throughs required no saws, no drills. It's almost easier than Lego. These metal ties provide support between the inner and outer wall without having too much of a cold bridge. Remember the prefabricated parts we were talking about earlier for horizontal overhangs? Here's the installation process. They were lifted into place overhead by a crane and then installed by
give a time frame. I want to know how long
manual laborers. These pieces were all printed off-site for the parapet of the home. By combining on-site and off-site printing, you're really able to accomplish a lot that wouldn't be feasible with just one or the other. That being said, they probably could have printed these pieces on-site before they started the home. You can definitely tell a significant difference in quality between the prints done in this warehouse and the prints done outside. These indoor warehouse prints look crispy, and look how clean the machine is. This is probably before they started printing the house. Either that, or it's a completely different machine. At the very least, a different extruder head. These printed lines are approximately 6.5 centimeters long. You can also tell it's really easy to make holes in it, which can be done either during or after the print. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, the finished product. When I was in Germany back in June, they had scaffolding all around the building, and so you couldn't appreciate it in its true form the way you can in these pictures. This is even before the landscaping, but it really looks sharp. Architecture is an industry where people often try to conform
Please give
to
me a price,
traditional
man.
styles, but this home is totally unique. Mensacorte did a great job creating a design that was worthy of the construction method. Like a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, a concrete printer is only as valuable as the models you can print with it. The finishing of this house is terrific in my opinion. It's super modern, and the printed walls are not overwhelming despite being tremendously exposed. Many of the homes I visit choose to hide parts of the printed wall, and while it's nice to know this can be done, I honestly really prefer leaving the walls exposed. This is also the best way to maximize your value instead of paying extra for finishes that really add nothing but subjective aesthetics.
Good point.
In many ways, this home is totally unrecognizable from the state it was in when I first
Wow.
visited. Those detail-oriented Germans really did a phenomenal job, and I think this staircase is one of my favorite parts of the building. The black accent walls in the details and appliances really give a uniform, modern look. They also have an entire smart home system built into a closet behind that bookshelf that Vladimir Korte explained to us in the video I recorded with him last time I was here. I feel pretty confident that Mensa Korte will pursue more 3D printed construction projects in the future, as I really think they had fun with this one. Oftentimes when people think of 3D printed houses, they think of the false media news that was spread years ago about a $10,000 or $4,000 3D printed house. Now, that's not a very realistic number. This house isn't meant to be a cheap house by any means. It was built to show what this technology is capable of on the higher end, when you put a lot of thought and time into the process and you consider what's possible with printing that wasn't really possible beforehand. How do you feel about the design of this house? With anything so new and unique, there are bound to be a variety of opinions. Please share yours in the comments below.
No,
and
you
we
never
can
said
see what Mensa Korte
Yeah, you said the high, but you didn't say anything.
did that the public appreciate and what they can maybe change.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like that design, man. But I hope it's not, man, over $1 million, because that's at that point it's not. I'm not interested. You know what I'm saying? I'm not interested. But this is the future, guys. Going to be the point. Is it going to be a robot, 4 robots, and the printer alone just doing the job? Wow. Insane, man. I would love to hear you guys' opinion regarding this. There's a lot of ingenuity going on in Germany when it comes down to housing, and that's amazing. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you next one.